While I adored Resident Evil 7, it's not without narrative issues. There are plot holes and confusing story elements that deserve to be looked at analytically. For instance, the Daughter's DLC blows open a giant plot hole in the way the mutamycete fungus that Evelyn produces infects, controls, and spreads throughout its host. It even throws into question when and how the fungus is able to take control.
I had the weirdest dream last night. There was this little girl.
Well, now, after breakfast...
There are inconsistencies between Ethan's gradual infection and the Baker's instantaneous infections. How are Lucas and Zoe able to resist the control of Evelyn for 3 long years? We will thoroughly examine all this and more, determine what's a plot hole, an inconsistency, a contradiction, or, whatever. Through the main game's memos, we are given many subtle hints that complete mind control isn't achieved until the fungus reaches the brain. That of which is considered time and time again to be a slow process. During the events of the Daughter's DLC, you find that is not at all the case. The second the lights go out in the DLC, the Bakers are all in late stages of the infection, and acting like they did 3 years later. I so badly wanted to excuse this story inconsistency as kicking it into high gear for dramatic effect, but it honestly created a breach charge of a plot hole that cannot be ignored. The first evidence we have is in Marge's journal, where on the day after the DLC incident, she states, "My ears have been ringing all day and I haven't been able to sleep since the child showed up." 4 days later, she writes, "I'm seeing things, hearing things, can't stop feeling nauseous. I went to see the doctor in town and he gave me an x-ray. What's happening to me?" We can assume that it wasn't long after that she was under the complete mind control of Evelyn, because 8 days later, she's talking madness. And even more madness. The letter from her doctor states, "I'm writing to tell you that I've finished examining your x-rays. Those dark areas in your cranium are fungus-like structures that seem to be related to mold. The hallucinations and noises you said you've been hearing may be related to these growths." Then the snail mail letter goes on to express the urgency in her medical condition, which assumingly never received a follow-up. By these accounts, you can theorize the late mid-stage infection took approximately 3 to 4 days. But if Marge is exhibiting this late stage of infection immediately as seen in the DLC, how is it she is able to go to the doctor without barfing up insects on everyone, and write seemingly coherent notes elaborating the progression of her illness? We'll get into that. And speaking of which, why does she suddenly have a mouthful of bugs? Where did they come from? How is it she's able to talk unmuffled while deep-throating a giant centipede?
Kiss me, lover!
Mia and Alan keep calling the mutamycete mold vomit for some reason, as it is never depicted that way.
She's vomiting far more in excess of her body mass.
But it's apparent it is secreted out of Evelyn, as the report states. You'd think the crew transporting her would know the details a little better. So first, let's take a look at how the so-called mold works on infected subjects through the infection report. Initial infection. The mold ingests nutrients from the subject's body to propagate itself, and slowly takes over the cells within the body. As a side effect of this, the infected subject gains remarkable regenerative abilities. During experiments, we removed arms and legs from test subjects and found that they were able to co-opt the amputated limbs in a matter of minutes. We see this very state of initial infection with Ethan. When or how Ethan is infected is beyond me, but the time frame may very well be during the first few blackouts before the dinner scene. In case you don't know what co-opt means, it's not a word you hear too often. It means the fusion of 2 objects. For one, Ethan has the ability to co-opt his severed hand. Granted, Zoe had to staple it back on because he was still freshly infected, but he was able to use it again just fine. For 2, he was able to co-opt his severed leg, which is sliced clean off with a shovel, reattached it in seconds with a green herb mixture, and he gets right back on his feet like it was no problem. Mid-stage infection. Once the mold reaches the brain, the subject's thoughts become in tune with those of the E-Series asset. The subject starts to hear things and experience hallucinations, and soon comes under the complete control of the E-Series asset. If this state continues, the host will lose all sense of ego. From everything we've gathered so far, we can infer heavily that it only takes a few hours to gain regenerative abilities, as seen through Ethan. It takes an estimated 4 days for the mutamycete to invade the brain, leading to the mid-stage infection. We learn this through Marge's journal. We also learn that this is the beginning of the mid-stage infection, and that there are actually 3 different phases. Phase 1 starts with visual and auditory hallucinations. In Phase 2, Evelyn will control the host however she pleases. This can be seen through Mia. The careful use of the word soon in the report suggests this takes some time. Phase 3 also suggests it takes some time by the use of if this state continues. However, this phase turns you into this: a complete psychopath. But the Daughters DLC contradicts all those memos of how the infection spreads. Jack and Marguerite Baker completely skip the initial infection and jump right into the late mid stages of it. For them, it's instantaneous. Also, following the progress of the main game and Ethan's infection, it's not until halfway through the game he hears an auditory hallucination of Evelyn.
Stay away.
Then not long after, a visual hallucination of her among other strange happenings. We can assume Ethan has reached mid-stage infection at this point. As you progress to the climax of the game, Ethan's hallucinations become more and more intense. But Ethan never reaches the point of losing all sense of ego. This progress of infection is what I'd come to expect. In the 8 to 12 hours of being infected, he doesn't turn into the Bakers, and neither do Zoe or Lucas, who both went an absurd 3 years without going beyond mid-stage infection. And at a certain point, Ethan becomes in tune with Evelyn's hallucinations and how she controls Mia, especially during the final fight with Mia. Complete infection. After every cell in the body has been taken over by the mold, the subject begins to lose their human form. Physical mutations differ from case to case, but all result in him or her acquiring incredible physical strength. This is most apparent with Jack's final form. At this stage, he has reached complete infection. It's possible the same can be said about Marge, as she has mutated long arms in a beehive where her R&D Report 1 likes to contradict everything the other memos have stated about the infection being rather slow, and totally bypasses the initial infection that gives profound regenerative abilities to say, almost immediately after infection, the subject begins to see images of Evelyn and even hear her voice. But that's the mid-stage infection. The initial infection is stated to be slow in Report 2. There are literally 2 memos in the same room contradicting each other. It could be the infection varies in speed from host to host, but that's still a plot hole. But just how is Lucas able to withstand Evelyn's influence? He's working with the company responsible for the incident, Tensu.
However, we did find several encrypted messages from the baker's son Lucas to an unknown third party. You can probably guess who that was.
And have been emailing them logs. We learn that he was sent a supply of suppressants to stay clear and focused, and has fooled Evelyn for years that he is still under her control, citing that not only does she look like a little kid, but she's as stupid as one too. By the time we see Lucas, we can assume he's borderline mid-stage infection, as his supply of suppressants very likely got cut off at some point.
Evelyn, I'm just trying to show him. I'm just trying to show him not everybody wants to go back to how things were.
But the real question is, how is Zoe able to withstand Evelyn's control for so long? We find out in the last page of the R&D Report 1 that the mind has natural barriers to Evelyn's brainwashing effect, which can be broken down through Evelyn by forcing her subjects to self-mutilate themselves. We also witness a few times that Evelyn can be resisted to some extent.
Stay away! Don't touch her! Don't hurt my family!
While it seems you need a pretty tough mind to resist the control of Evelyn, Zoe exhibits that quality through her tough persona. We also find Zoe has been struggling, and it hasn't been easy for her through a memo on her camper trailer. My body's feeling weirder and weirder. Soon I'll become like mom and dad. It's all her fault. Granted, she has been in hiding for a very long time. In the main game, we get to see exactly when Mia gets infected. She is covered by mold. This is how we are to assume the actual infection occurs. When she realizes she's been infected, she rushes to record a video message to Ethan to tell him to stay away and just forget about her. Having experience with the mold firsthand, she understands that her survival is bleak.
Stay away. Forget that you ever knew me.
Not long after, she is submerged in water, unconscious. She was supposed to drown, but the infection saves her, and it's evident that Evelyn had plans for her.
Can we be a family like before?
So she may have played a part in Mia's survival as well. On the other hand, Ethan is infected during one of his blackouts. But when exactly is Marge or Jack infected in the Daughters DLC? I was under the assumption from the main game that Evelyn needed to cover you in mutamycete secretions in order to infect you. But that is not at all the case with the DLC. They seem normal, then they aren't. There's no evidence of the mold anywhere around the infected bakers, nor any presence of Evelyn. They immediately go into the late mid stages of infection, losing their senses of ego, which has been stated time and time again to be a slow process. Then, we cannot forget, in the Daughters DLC, there is the scene of the next morning where everyone is right back to normal, having forgotten everything that happened during the prior night. Could the explanation of Marge's doctor visits and coherent journal entries be because the infection only takes hold at night? The ending of the Daughters DLC makes it very clear. The nights are marked by the family's murderous feasts. This explains away the journal and letter. But why only at night? I was wrong in my previous video about there being a loading screen message that explains molded are affected by light. That's not mentioned in the game anywhere. But still, could it be that light or even sunlight affects Evelyn's control? And if so, why isn't any of this vital information ever mentioned in the R&D report? You'd think Evelyn's mutamycete's weakness to light would be something worth documenting. The R&D report seems to leave out the fact that before infection, Evelyn is able to teleport and or screw with Mia's electronic wrist device. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it's possibly just for the creep factor. Just check this out. On top of that, the R&D report also seems to leave out the fact that Evelyn is able to control a slithering worm-like mutamycete organism, the one seen during the scene on the boat just in time to capsize it for dramatic effect, and also seen to whisk Ethan away for dramatic effect. While not explained anywhere else in the game either, this isn't necessarily a plot hole or anything, as this is an ability that could have been developed over time. But it sure is a convenient ability for significant plot purposes, am I right? There are definitely contradictions when it comes to dates as well. In a newspaper article, it describes the Sewer Gators team having gone missing on the 9th of July. But as we can gather from the date stamp on some of the videotapes, they enter the house and Clancy gets kidnapped by Jack on June 1st. Shortly after that, he is taken in by Marge and fed some nasty soup and stew. Then, on June 2nd, he is kidnapped by Lucas, presumably after his grand escape. Clancy then fails Lucas's rigged-to-lose mind game puzzle and burns to death. He looks dead to me. His corpse is even shown. But wait a second! On June 3rd, he is subjected to a life-or-death roulette Saw movie-like version of blackjack, completely unscathed, which makes no sense. But the newspaper details they went missing on the 9th, when they went missing on the 1st. The newspaper even seems to assert that the 9th was the exact date they left to Dulvey. So, as you can see, some key writers weren't keeping very good notes of dates. And hell, as you can tell by now, it wasn't just dates they weren't keeping good track of. Okay, to recap everything so far, my previous video explained a minor contradiction stating the E-series was perfected, when I proved it certainly wasn't perfect by any means. The mind control apparently only takes place at night, with no real explanation in the game or R&D reports where you think something like that would be mentioned. This creates a plot hole. There's much insinuation that the late mid-stage infection is a slow process, while an article explains the early mid-stage infection is instantaneous, and the Daughters DLC shows that the late mid-stage infection is also instantaneous. This is not only a contradiction, but a plot hole as well. Infection of the mutamycete fungus is shown as enveloping the host first, as with Mia, but in Daughters, there's no presence of Evelyn or her mold. What's up with the teleportation and or ability to screw with the electronic wrist device? Also, the VHS tapes and the newspaper report inconsistent dates that make absolutely no sense. So, as you can see, the story isn't without flaws, plot holes, and inconsistencies. But as you play, you really turn a blind eye to everything, as the unknowing, horrifying experience is just that immersive. I'm sure there's plenty more inconsistencies I didn't even touch on, but these are the worst offenders. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and possibly become a patron to help me continue making these videos. I absolutely need to thank all these fine young cannibals who pledge to me monthly on Patreon. A special shout out to the following new patrons: Michael, Josh TMZ, man, this name, Jurcha S. Vitarshan, Born to Die 3, and Big Al. And a super special shout out to the following patrons: the legendary Chris, GSXP, Jay, and Michael, the heroic Tyler Hunter and Jack Bristow, the elite Andreas Birnbaumer, Alex Loop, Jonathan Ryan, Swifty, Sigma Undine Goodnight, Josh TMZ, Jurcha Svitarshan, and Born to Die 3. Thanks again. Subscribe, become a patron, or watch my other Resident Evil 7 videos for more entertainment, such as my last one with Evelyn. Stay tuned for more on Dark Souls 3's DLC.
We won't get into that. But let me see. I do want to look at some comparison videos of this game versus Resident Evil 2 Remake, though, considering that's like the first Resident Evil engine game that I played. Actually, hold on a second. Okay, there we go. Yeah, in Resident Evil 7, it's the first person. The Raccoon City Games remakes are third person. I think they recycle textures as well, but whatever textures they decide to recycle seems to work pretty well. Seems like a variation of the font that they use for text. Very funny. I do like that edit, though. Yeah, this gives you major flashbacks. I think I do prefer playing this kind of game on a PC, though, just so I get a free motion aiming. The sound design, though, really be throwing you off. Like, they really throw you in for a loop. What did I get pinged for? This I kind of do want to see, though. Wait, hold on a second.
Welcome to the family, son.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, what's up, mailbox?
So recently, I uploaded a video of Mr. X versus Jack Baker, and someone suggested I do one where we have Nemesis instead. I mean, but why stop there though? Instead, let's cover a scenario of a battle that includes the Proto-Tyrant from RE0 with Mr. X and Nemesis going up against the Baker family, which includes Jack, Marguerite, and Lucas, as we have a full-blown battle between
Yeah,
these
I've noticed. It
villains,
actually
and
came
see
out
who will come
fantastic,
on top
yo.
if they clashed head-on. Anyways, what is up, you guys? This is Hey Deva, and in this video, we're going to be breaking down the team battles of the Tyrants versus Bakers, as we see how they would fare against each other, and proving who would win in their monster clash.
Oh
Anyways,
yeah,
before
the
we get
Tyrants are
started,
definitely
please feel
formidable.
free to
I
like
enjoy their
and
boss
subscribe
fights,
to my
though.
channel for
Well,
more Resident
for
Evil
Mr.
content
X
in
and
the future,
Nemesis,
and check
kinda.
out my other Tyrant videos that I've done on my channel as well. Alright, so let's start off with the Tyrants, being created with the sole purpose of eliminating the
Hey, what's up,
targets
Puckett?
based on the orders of the Umbrella Corporation, showcasing their grand stature and seeing their different traits, starting with the Proto-Tyrant and his ability to lunge a fair distance while at the same time slashing away at his prey, showing how ferocious he can be.
Oh, this
and the
one's more
overall
agile.
dexterity of his attacks looks absolutely menacing. So moving with Mr. X from the new Resident Evil 2 remake, where he shows this ability to absorb
How's
so
everything
much
going,
damage
Puckett?
and showcasing his superhuman strength, with a great example was seen when he takes a vehicle head on. Also, we see him being able to grab a hold of his target, even if they were on the other side of the wall, showcasing that he's not limited by regular boundaries, and taking advantage of any unsuspecting victims if possible. Also being able to transform into his Super Tyrant form, showcasing the large mutated right arm with claws.
Oh, I hated this dude.
So moving next with Nemesis, as we watch this behemoth showcase his speed when chasing after Jill Valentine, and its versatility
Oh,
when
yeah,
he uses his
same.
tentacles and rocket launchers. Seeing a
It's
tyrant
kind
being
of
so versatile and
mesmerizing to
mobile,
look at,
something to be
really.
bewildered by, making him a true adversary for any
Hanging in
opponent.
there. Pretty glad that we can finally end off Resident Evil 7 tonight. I just want to watch some videos first. Because I'm a video
So
dude.
with all these in mind, it would seem that the Bakers would be steamrolled if they face these BOWs head on, but each of these family members are known to have their own unique abilities, starting with Jack Baker, as we've seen him showcase his superhuman strength as well, being able to go through walls,
Kool-Aid Man. Why did they take the entrance of the Kool-Aid Man?
Also, Jack is known to be very resilient when it comes to receiving so much damage, even amongst his family members, which was made clear with these examples. Showing that he can be an adversary that can endure a prolonged battle, not being hindered by any fatal blow, because we've seen him lose his top portion of his body, but would still show up later again in the game in Resident Evil 7.
Get your ass back to the house. I will deal with you later.
This thing was kind of weird to fight. Not gonna lie.
Also, the fact that he's still kicking after receiving a serum that calcified his whole body really showed how durable he is, which was shown in the End of Zoe DLC, when he becomes this tyrant-like mole creature who constantly becomes this obstacle for
This
us
I'm
to
kind of
even
aware
overcome.
of. This dude.
So now moving on to Marguerite Baker.
That's a pretty
who,
amazing
like Jack, has
transformation,
an
not gonna
aspect of
lie.
durability as well. Not as potent as his, but enough to keep her opponents honest when facing her, which was shown when we deal so much damage to her during our encounters. Also, her uncanny ability to elongate her limbs and being able to crawl on walls and ceilings is something that she can take advantage of, being able to sneak around her target, causing so much havoc for the Tyrants.
And she
Also,
does
her
plenty of
ability to
damage.
control insects and bugs
Lots
is
of
something that can
damage.
be a pest to her opponents, overwhelming them with the critters to the point that the other Baker family members can use this distraction as a window of attack. Lastly, Lucas. Because out of the bakers, he's the most technologically sound, being able to concoct devices that can be detrimental to any living organism, while also being resilient to any trauma as well. Because after we see Jack cut off his arm, he clearly states,
"Not again."
which prompts the idea that he's lost a limb or two before, but we can see that he's able to regenerate them back, which is a viable aspect when going up against the tyrants. Also, we can't discount his mold transformation.
Ooh, that's a pretty
Lucas
cool
in that form
transformation.
is truly formidable, being able to stand in stature with the tyrants, while at the same time being able to contaminate an area with a toxic airborne strain that can hamper any other living organism in the proximal area, making it
That's pretty
necessary for an
cool.
individual to wear a special mask to survive a prolonged
I wouldn't want to
battle,
get hit
as
by
we
that,
saw
but that
with
looks
Chris
pretty
Redfield.
cool.
The air contamination is going off the charts. Kill that thing before your air tank gets out.
Thanks for the advice.
So Mr. X and company have to be wary when attacking Lucas carelessly, needing to target him at his weak spots and not spreading any of the airborne toxins that can hamper them in the long run. So the clash with the Tyrants and Bakers can ensue with the Proto-Tyrant lunging constantly towards the Bakers, taking advantage of that large claws that he has, but he has to be careful of not letting his exposed spinal column open for an attack.
That's true. Tyrants always have the weak spots open.
Because any of the Bakers can use that target and exploit that weakness, with Jack possibly using his chainsaw to dig into it, to Marguerite swarming bugs into the wound, or Lucas planning a device that can explode in the area. Also, even if the Proto-Tyrant does make contact with any of the Bakers, it will still not be enough to kill them due to the mold strain. We still easily be able to absorb the blow and use that window to counterattack the behemoth. But of course, during this ensuing battle, I don't think Nemesis or Mr. X would stand idly by watching their Tyrant brethren be overwhelmed by the Baker family. Because I can see Mr. X trying to shield the Proto-Tyrant from the Baker's attacks, taking advantage of that trenchcoat limiter, while at the same time we could have Nemesis locking on the Bakers with his rocket launcher, trying to end the battle quickly. But let's just hope that even a blast from Nemesis would be enough to incapacitate them, because Lucas can turn around and mutate into his mold transformation, and spread the toxins that can hamper the Tyrants. So Mr. X can make his move and turn into a Super Tyrant if Jack and Marguerite does too much damage to him, using his mutated claws to chop down Jack, until he's unable
Make
to
that
fight
two
back,
mutated claws
even
because
if
there's
it's for a
another
brief
limiter
moment.
in his
But Marguerite
right
can
arm.
use this time to have her bug swarm the Super
Left
Tyrant,
arm, I mean.
especially with the exposed heart, and the open jaw that we saw in RE2 remake could be something she could have her insects go into, attacking him from the inside as well. Anyways, even with all the attributes that the Bakers have, the Tyrants are resilient in their own way, so even for some reason they get damaged or hampered to some degree due to Lucas and his airborne toxins, I can still see them push through and slash away at the Bakers, possibly attacking Marguerite first, especially since she has that large weak spot in her groin area.
That's true.
Then their attention will be towards Lucas, as we have all three Tyrants try to hold him down to some degree, and try to slash away or having Nemesis rain down rocket launcher shots, or bullets if he's using a minigun. Then they would try to subdue Jack eventually. Even if he is very resilient, because sooner or later the constant damage would have Jack become riddled with sloughing flesh, which was described in one of the files in RE7, allowing the Tyrants to really try to take advantage and pummel away at the Baker Patriarch.
Farewell from the family, brother.
That's pretty cool, not gonna lie. I saw
In
that
the end,
before.
I could see the Proto-Tyrant being defeated and killed, and Mr. X and Nemesis sustaining a lot of damage.
I figured
But
Jack
they'd
would be
still come out
resilient
on top for
anyways.
the
I didn't
time
think he
being
would be dead
facing the
after, like,
Bakers. But here's a quick thought though.
we injected
Even
him
if
as
the
Ethan.
Tyrants win at the moment, who's to say that these behemoths weren't infected by the mold strain in some capacity? Because if this happens to be true, then in the long run we can see that the Bakers could have potentially have made this fight a draw, if the Tyrants aren't rid of the mold strain, eventually succumbing to his effects. Also, a prolonged battle while being exposed to the toxic airborne environment is sure to take its toll in the long run, even if these Tyrants were resistant to a lot of damage. Anyways, what do you guys think overall about the monster clash between the Tyrants versus the Bakers? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my Tyrants versus Bakers video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, because if you did, please feel free to hit that notification bell icon so you guys can be updated when I upload my next video. Anyways, again, thank you guys so much, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hayden signing out.
Like I say, this video was pretty enlightening, actually. I think it certainly would be a draw if they were to go up against, like, the Tyrants in general. So, that being said and done, we took care of the Bakers for now. Now our main focus is to take care of freaking Evie. Well, let's see what happens. We did save, so actually, hold on, extra content. I already got the banned footage, Not a Hero. Not a Hero is actually free. which is the follow-up to Resident Evil